Hello everyone, hope you're all having a fantastic day and welcome back to the second breakdown video for the Netflix anime series Godzilla Singular Point. If you missed the first breakdown, be sure to check that one out as well. Okay, let's get started with episode 4 titled Mada Minu Mirai wo, which translates to something like Future Not Yet Seen. Alternatively, the episode has the unusual English title of Gadabout. Whatever you decide to call it, the episode begins with two fishermen on a boat in red waters as they are suddenly attacked by a swarm of Manda. Meanwhile, some of the dead Radon have been transported to a facility for further study, while the rest are scheduled to be destroyed. Yun and Haberu tried to get information from Sato at Misakioku by claiming that the radio observatory intentionally played the song that set off the alarm in order to lure the Radon to the site. This is a ruse to force a meeting with him to find out what he knows. Various people speculate about the origins of Radon, with some suggesting that they may have come from the sea, which fits with some of the previous episodes. It also suggests that they mutated from an earlier aquatic form, something akin to the evolutionary process in Pokemon, or even Shin Godzilla. Yun and Haberu meet with Sato at the edge of the forest, near where the dead Radon are being kept. They learn about the bones being stored beneath the observatory, and later discover that one of the Radon corpses has gone missing. Meanwhile, May has arrived in Dubai and attends the lecture of Professor Lee concerning a mysterious material known as Archetype that can seemingly trap and amplify light energy, an ability that goes against the conservation of energy, a law of physics that states that the total energy of an isolated system must remain constant. May theorizes that it may be possible that the material may actually be refracting the light through time, causing the same energy to duplicate over itself. We then cut to a containment facility in India run by the Shiva Consortium, the same institution affiliated with Professor Lee. A series of tremors have been recorded beneath the structure and a search team is sent to investigate. Back in the forest, Yun and Haberu discover peculiar animal tracks, as well as the mostly eaten remains of the Radon. We briefly return to Dubai where May meets with Lee, who is interested in her time travel hypothesis, and asks her to write up a report about it for the following day, before returning back to the forest, where the duo stumble upon a new character, Kai, a self-proclaimed journalist who is also investigating the footprints and other strange behavior reported in the area. May and Yun theorize via text message that Archetype may not be of this world, or even this universe, as it appears its very existence breaks the laws of physics, and the episode concludes with a truck full of JSDF soldiers discovering an overturned truck in the middle of the road. They soon find the occupants alive, cowering in a patch of forest on the roadside, but also soon discover the culprit, Anguirus, who also seems to be the one who left the footprints behind and ate the Radon, confirming that it's a carnivore. Episode 5 is variously titled either Hayakoto Kaze no, meaning as swift as the wind, or by the English title Theorist, which in a shocking twist of events actually makes sense for once. The episode starts with the JSDF rescue helicopter arriving to save the fishermen from the previous episode's prologue sequence. They too are attacked by the Manda swarm, however, which makes for an exciting action sequence as they attempt to rescue the men while simultaneously trying to dodge the Kaiju's attacks. Back in the forest, Yun, Haberu, and Kai meet up with some hunters who are also looking for Anguirus. So despite the previous episode seeming to imply that our lead characters were the first to make this discovery, this might not actually be entirely accurate, as everyone they encounter seems to already know about it. Back in Dubai, May presents her findings to Professor Lee and discovers that her theory has already been suggested by the Shiva Consortium and is known as the Ashihara Cascade. However, Lee is impressed by May and how fast she caught on to this possibility and encourages her to continue with her research. In the Shiva facility in India, we discovered there is a fissure in the earth at the bottom of a vast shaft that appears to be leaking a red substance. The mysterious and quirky head of the search team compares this to a river in hell from Dante's Inferno, and seemingly confirms the material to be another phase of Archetype. Presumably, this is also the same substance as the red dust found around the Radon, and the cause for the red water in other episodes. Curiously, the director of this facility mentions a prophecy by Ashihara confirming a link between all of the various incidents thus far. Suddenly, a monster emerges from the fissure and begins making its way to the surface as the search team attempts to retreat before the gates are closed. They manage to escape just in time for the hatches to be closed, trapping the beast in the shaft below, at least for the time being. We cut back to the forest as Yun stumbles upon Anguirus. One of the hunters attempts to shoot it, but the bullet is deflected by Anguirus, who exhibits an ability to predict the trajectory of the shot, implying it can possibly see into the future.
I can see the future!
Yet another connection to Archetype, especially its potential time-bending properties. Kai continues to investigate various Anguirus sightings, and we see several news reports concerning the spread of the Radon and Manda swarms. Apparently Radon has spread across the entirety of the western Pacific region. A large-scale mountain hunt has been commissioned to either trap or kill Anguirus before it is able to cause any significant damage to the area. Goro and Jet Jaguar join the hunt along with Gen, an old friend/rival of Goro's, who has brought a truck-mounted harpoon. We also see that Jet Jaguar's stubby legs have been replaced with tires to add speed and stability. Sato begins to look into Ashihara, the founder of Misakioku Radio Observatory, and apparently the key to everything thus far. His name first appears in association with research he conducted for a now-defunct London-based pharmaceutical company concerning jellyfish. Ashihara founded a company called Archetype Incorporated, which was later bought by the Shiva Consortium. However, it is discovered that despite claiming to have existed for a decade prior, the first record of Shiva is this merger, and it is theorized that they too were the creation of this Ashihara character. All of these events occurred many years ago, but are directly connected to the present-day occurrences. We also discover that the facility in India is located in a place called Upala, a name shared with the song that attracted the Radon that first set the events of the series into motion. The hunters have gathered on a golf course and lure Anguirus into the area. Although the initial plan was to capture the Kaiju in a large cage, Yun and the others soon discover that it has grown considerably in the short time since they last saw it. Gen and Goro immediately rush out to fight it as the episode comes to a close. Episode 6 is called either Riron na Kisuji, Odd Numbers Theory, or Enfatico, allegedly an English title, and begins with a massive swarm of Radon attacking New York City, showing that their presence has expanded far beyond the range previously shown. Sato presents his findings to the director of Misakioku, and we learn that Ashihara's involvement began 80 years ago, while investigating a red tide of jellyfish nearby, which I'm sure will tie into the Archetype plot going forward. Back at the Shiva facility, the subterranean monster is given the name Sharanga, named after the celestial bow of the god Vishnu. It's changed to Salunga by the Japanese media for reasons. Mei continues her research, going to a library to track down information concerning Ashihara's archetype. She eventually finds it, but seems surprised that it wasn't in a more well-known scientific journal. I mean, has she seen a picture of this guy? He looks like he was strung out for the better part of a century, so probably wasn't the most sound-minded individual, and was likely shunned by the mainstream scientific community. You know what? All of this seems very familiar for some reason all of a sudden. Anyway, she finds that the writings match the appearance of the author, and are mostly cryptic riddles and strange doodlings. She also discovers what is presumably connections to the lyrics of the song, that has been somewhat awkwardly translated as "Let's your soul stand cool," and "composed before a million universes," followed by "fearful symmetry." Below she finds an equation, 6 equals 9. Though I don't plan on discussing the possible significance of the number 69 in this particular breakdown. Fearful symmetry indeed. The military investigates the Radon sightings, and we learn that there is a huge gap with no reports between the Western Pacific region and New York, leaving an officer to speculate that a second nest may exist, and that the next most likely target will be somewhere in Europe. We then return to the library, where Mei is startled by a mysterious woman who introduces herself as a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Yukie Kanoko, who has appeared in the show before, but until now had only a few scenes. Here she explains to Mei that the poem in Fearful Symmetry is associated with the poetry of Walt Whitman, and proposes a connection to the mathematical formula, which is enough for Mei to make a breakthrough and theorize that the archetype exists outside of our universe and capable of twisting time over itself. She shares this information with Professor Lee, who suggests she go with her to London. Back at the golf course, Jet Jaguar and Anguirus are locked in battle. The Ankylosaur gains the upper hand, but seems more curious than it is aggressive. It's then attacked by soldiers using jeep-mounted machine guns, but manages to use its time skip technique to deflect the bullets back, and immediately gives chase, while Goro steals the harpoon from Gen's truck and chases after it. Jet Jaguar then rams into Anguirus and blasts it at point-blank range, seemingly killing the beast. The Navy intercepts the Manda swarm and begins engaging them in a naval battle, but are surprised when an enormous red Mosasaurus-like creature suddenly appears, leaping over one of the ships before continuing its apparent pursuit of the Manda. It is unknown whether it's following them for food or another reason, but it, the Manda, and Radon all converge on Tokyo Bay. We know from the Bandai toy line that this creature is a form of Godzilla known as Aquatilis. The red water seems to possibly be emanating from Aquatilis itself, as all of Tokyo Bay begins turning red upon its arrival. Kanoko and one of the military commanders discuss their respective findings, as Kanoko continuously pushes an Armageddon-type scenario. Back at the golf course, everyone is celebrating the defeat of Anguirus, which turned out to be premature as the seemingly deceased monster revives and begins trashing the local parking lot. Goro immediately attacks, but is taken out by Anguirus' tail, decapitating Jet Jaguar, revealing a small processor underneath. An obvious nod to the Mechagodzilla Mark II from 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla. With Goro unconscious, Yoon activates the autopilot program, but since Jet Jaguar is unable to see without its head, Yoon climbs onto its shoulders and directs it by his command. Yoon and Jet Jaguar fire another harpoon directly into Anguirus' skull, killing it again. This time for good. Probably. Before wrapping up this breakdown, I just wanted to briefly talk a bit about the Kaiju in this series. Jet Jaguar having such a prominent role is surprising, but works well with the overall plot. His design is certainly a bit weird, but it's good to see the character back, and as we find out, it's a work in progress, so we can probably expect to see a much more recognizable incarnation down the line. The Radon are very generic and are basically just Quetzalcoatlus, which the series even states at one point in an earlier episode, and their swarming behavior makes them much more like Gauss from Katakawa Daie's Gamera series than any previous incarnation of the Kaiju. I find it a bit bizarre that Toho has chosen to give us some classic Kaiju in name only, such as Manda, which incidentally looks nothing at all like any previous iteration, and has also decided to give us a number of classic Kaiju lookalikes, such as Sharanga, Salunga, whatever, an obvious cross between Baragon and Gabara, or even Gojira Aquatilis, which couldn't possibly be inspired by Titanosaurus in any way. The Godzilla forms and red substance plot line is extremely reminiscent of Shin Godzilla, as well as the previous Godzilla anime trilogy, as I feel the plot is leading us into the direction that all of the Kaiju are in some way linked to Godzilla. Though done before, it could be an interesting concept depending on how well it's executed. Having said that, the real show stealer in these episodes, at least in my opinion, was Anguirus, as it's always been a personal favorite of mine, as well as a sizable portion of the fandom, and the singular point design is absolutely incredible. It's a shame they chose to kill it off so quickly, but Toho has quite a long history of disrespecting the character, so it's pretty much expected at this point. He's basically the Krillin of the Godzilla franchise, but it was still great to see it in action, and who knows, maybe there's another one out there somewhere. That's all for this breakdown video. I'll definitely have more like this coming soon, so if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and consider subscribing to get more content like this in the future. I do videos like this as well as reviews covering a variety of topics, but usually sci-fi or horror themed. We also do a weekly news discussion podcast on this channel as well, which tends to get pretty random at times. So let me know what you thought of these episodes of Godzilla Singular Point in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching.